many times have you asked yourself, why do I keep living a life I didn't choose? And what if my decisions aren't really mine? Am I just surviving while others rule?
George Orwell once wrote that freedom is the freedom to say that 2 plus 2 make 4. But what if even that has already been decided for you? Imagine just for a moment that everything you believe to be the result of your freedom, what you wear, consume, defend, was in fact carefully planted. An invisible architecture that defines what you call me. And maybe now you're there, lying down with the glow of the screen, lighting your face in the darkness of the night, feeling that something is out of place, like a dissonant melody playing behind the ordinary. This video is not a promise of cheap empowerment. It is a mirror, a murky mirror, where maybe you'll see yourself like you never dared before. We're going to talk about power, but not the kind of power you buy with applause or likes. We're talking about the power that doesn't show up in pictures, the power that doesn't smile, the power that rules in silence. All of us at some point have been unfair to others, and especially to ourselves. We pretend to be in control while following inherited scripts. We call it routine. We call it life. But Machiavelli, with the coldness of a surgeon of the human soul, had already warned us. The desire to conquer is a natural and common quality. And when men succeed in it, they will always be praised, or, at the very least, not condemned. But what about those who are conquered without even realizing it? And those who obey while believing they are choosing? This video is a dissection of the invisible structure of power, a dive into its 5 levels, from anesthetized obedience to divine manipulation. It is a disturbing invitation to face what lies behind the theater of appearances. We are about to walk among shadows where kings tremble and ghosts smile. So take a deep breath. Close your eyes if you want. We're about to enter a labyrinth where truth comes at a high price, but staying asleep costs your very soul. Are you ready to descend the steps of consciousness to the center of the labyrinth? He wakes up every day to the alarm he set himself, but didn't choose. He wears clothes someone else designed, follows routines he never questioned, repeats ready-made phrases as if they were truths. And the most dangerous part, he believes he's in control. This is the first level of power, or rather the absence of it, the place where the invisible live. But they are not invisible to the eyes. They are invisible to themselves. They believe they are free, and that is precisely what makes them perfect prisoners. You might know this kind of man. Maybe you are him. He pays bills, keeps schedules, respects rules. He follows, but he doesn't lead. He lives, but he doesn't inhabit his own life. He reacts, but he doesn't choose. He thinks he's being rational, when he's only repeating conditioning. Machiavelli would never waste time with them. To him they are just mass. The fog that hides the real games of power. They are the ones who obey for comfort, who prefer the predictability of the cage to the anguish of flight. They are the ones who scream for freedom, but tremble before responsibility. And so, like trained animals, they call life what is nothing more than an automated performance. A silent theater where the script is imposed, and the audience doesn't even realize it's on stage. The great trap of this level is that it doesn't hurt. It numbs, and the numbness of submission disguises itself as peace. But it's only exhaustion, an exhaustion that piles up in the soul. Do you know that exhaustion? It's not physical, it's existential. It's that vague feeling that something is wrong, even when everything seems right, like a forced smile in the mirror, where you no longer recognize the one who's smiling. The invisible submissive live on waiting. They wait for Friday. They wait for a promotion. They wait for someday to change. They wait so long that they forget to live. And to endure this emptiness, they build philosophies that romanticize pain. They say suffering is noble, that serving is beautiful, that accepting everything with humility is a sign of greatness. But deep down it's all fear, fear of standing up, fear of thinking differently, fear of being rejected, and the cruelest part, they attack those who try to escape. They mock the disciplined, they scorn the ambitious, they call arrogance anything that exposes their own cowardice. But do you know what the most brutal truth is? These men are not weak because they lack talent. They are weak by choice. Because being weak requires less pain, less risk, less responsibility. And that is exactly why the system loves them, because they control themselves. They watch themselves, police themselves, punish themselves, believing they are being good citizens. But in reality, they're only keeping the gears turning for those who hold real power. Now answer me, in silence, just to yourself. Are you at this level? Do you wake up every day with your own purpose, or with someone else's obligations? Do you fight for what you believe in, or believe in what you were told to fight for? If all this is stirring something inside you, don't run. Feel it. That strange pain that begins to grow in your chest, it's called consciousness, and it's the first sign that maybe you're ready for the next level. He finally rises. He looks back and feels ashamed of the apathy he once carried. Now he trains, works hard, takes on responsibilities, sets boundaries, inspires respect. He is the example, the provider, the protector, but he is still not free. He is strong, inside the cage, and he has learned to love the bars. This is the second level of power, the uniformed hanged man, the man who believes he has achieved sovereignty, but, in truth, has only climbed one rung within servitude. He follows orders with pride. He wears the uniform with honor. He demands discipline, loyalty, hierarchy. And for a time, that seems to be enough, because at this level he is admired. He is followed. He is feared. But there is a brutal difference between being feared and being free. The uniformed hanged man does not realize that his strength is still borrowed. He is only powerful because someone above gave him permission to be. He commands, but through manuals. He leads, but with words he never wrote. He upholds the structure, yet never asks who designed it. Do you know why Machiavelli considered this kind of man so useful? Because he is predictable, and real power despises the unpredictable. The uniformed hanged man is the arm of the system, the executor of order, the gear that keeps the machine running even if it crushes its own children. And he accepts this. He accepts it because he learned to confuse respect with submission disguised as authority. And that is a hard illusion to break. You see these men everywhere. They are the bosses who recite rules they secretly despise, the fathers who impose limits they don't even understand, the policemen who enforce laws they never questioned. They do because they must, and the more they do, the less they feel. Routine hardens, obedience intoxicates, and little by little the soul begins to die, suffocated by the duty that once felt like virtue. But not all is lost. There is a sacred moment, a solitary, profound instant when the uniformed hanged man looks into the mirror and asks, "Is this all?" The uniform that was once a symbol of pride now feels heavy. The medals that once shone on the wall no longer warm his chest. The firm voice begins to tremble in silence when no one is watching. That is when the void of consciousness is born. The hanged man begins to realize that he served so much, so well, that he forgot to live for himself. And that, my friend, that is the beginning of freedom. But the leap to the next level demands rare courage, because the one who questions the order becomes the enemy of the order. The applause turns into silence. Colleagues turn into judges. The system that once called him a hero now brands him a traitor, and that is why many prefer to stay where they are. They decorate the cell. They cry in silence. They die with honor, but without truth. Have you ever felt that? That feeling of doing everything right, and still knowing something is wrong? You have structure, respect, maybe even success, but deep down you know you don't own your own story. The second level is the most treacherous, because it looks like victory, but it is only a more comfortable prison. If you are here, there is hope, because the one who begins to question has already begun to rise. And up there among whispers and silences, a new game is being played, not with orders but with ideas, not with commands but with strategies. He no longer obeys, he no longer follows orders, now he writes between the lines. We have reached the third level, the manipulator, the man who grew tired of being a pawn and learned to play as a strategist. But that intelligence comes with a price, and the price is his very soul. The manipulator studies others as if decoding maps. He observes silences, memorizes weaknesses, learns to smile without feeling. Every compliment is calculated. Every gesture is a subtle trap. He doesn't demand power. He weaves it behind the scenes, like a ghost that dictates the play without ever stepping on stage. Unlike the uniformed hanger, the manipulator understands the structure. He knows the backstage of the game, and that's why he prefers to remain in the shadows. Being visible is dangerous. Being necessary is the only real safety. On the outside, he seems loyal. On the inside, he weighs every word with coldness. His affection is strategy. His presence rehearsal. His friendship a currency. He is the favorite of leaders, the advisor of kings, but never the king, and he knows it, because the throne is exposed. and he prefers effectiveness to applause. Yet life in the theater of control exacts a silently cruel cost, the loss of identity. The manipulator becomes so entangled in games of influence, social masks, and networks of advantage that he begins to forget who he was before wearing so many disguises. He conquers, but he doesn't trust. He rises, but he never anchors. He wins, but he never sleeps in peace. Because the manipulator is always on alert. He knows everyone has a price, including himself, and so he doesn't attach. His relationships are unsigned contracts. His love is always conditional. His life an eternal chessboard. Have you ever met someone like that? Someone magnetic, articulate, charismatic, yet who never truly shows what they feel, who always seems 2 steps ahead, but with emptiness in their eyes? Perhaps without realizing, you are becoming that person. Or perhaps you already are, and there is tragedy in that, because no matter how powerful the manipulator becomes, his power is always under threat. Once exposed, he becomes the villain. No one forgives the strategist who reveals himself. That is why he prefers to be myth, whisper, influence without authorship, movement without a signature. Machiavelli understood this kind of power with almost surgical precision. He knew manipulation is often more effective than force, but he also knew it is unstable, lonely, ephemeral. The manipulator does not seek applause, he seeks relevance. But by avoiding the weight of visibility, he also renounces sovereignty. He prefers to be heard rather than exposed, to move the pawns rather than become the king, because the king can fall. The manipulator disappears first. But there comes a moment, rare and profound, when even the manipulator grows weary of pretending, weary of playing, weary of measuring every step as if life were a minefield. And then the question arises, not with anger or fear, but with a silent melancholy. What if I stopped influencing others and started commanding myself? This is the turning point, the moment when the manipulator can transform. But for that, he must break the addiction to invisibility. He must be willing to be seen, to be judged, to be hated, because the next level demands presence. It demands a face. It demands the courage to stand at the center of the fire, and few, very few, ever accept this passage. He finally appears. After years in the shadows, the manipulator decides to reveal himself. He takes responsibility. He makes decisions. He puts his own name on the front line. He becomes the king. But the throne, though golden, is made of thorns. This is the 4th level of power, visible sovereignty. Here the game is no longer played behind the scenes. It happens in front of everyone. And every word is recorded. Every gesture interpreted. Every failure punished with delight. The king is the apex of authority. He commands armies, moves crowds, writes laws. But with that power comes the curse of exposure. The king lives surrounded by smiles that hide blades, admired by many but loved by few, because no one loves the throne, only what it offers. It is here that the manipulator, now crowned, perceives the rawness of the summit. There is no rest, no anonymity, no escape. He must constantly decide. He must act, lead, represent, inspire. And every decision opens a new crack, because the higher one climbs, the harder it is to keep balance. What was once mere influence now becomes real responsibility, and it exacts its price in silence. Machiavelli already warned, the prince must be loved or feared, but what he didn't say is that, inevitably, he will be betrayed. And so the king lives under tension. He learns to smile while bleeding. He learns that kindness is a double-edged sword, and that leadership, in its purest state, is a lonely form of sacrifice. Even so, there is beauty in this level, because the king can create, he can inaugurate eras, leave a legacy. But even that is at risk, because every visible legacy can be erased, rewritten, reinterpreted. And that is when a rare few decide to take the final step, the hardest, the coldest, the most impersonal. They abdicate the crown, not out of weakness, but out of clarity. They realize that the most enduring power does not lie in the name, but in the influence that remains even when the name disappears. And thus the 5th level is born, the phantom that reigns. He does not appear in portraits. He does not sign decrees. He does not give speeches. Yet he is in everything. He is the architect of kings, the mind behind the thrones, the shadow that whispers to all, but is never seen. His power is absolute, because it cannot be attacked. No one knows him, no one sights him, but everyone feels his presence. He does not need to win battles. He designs them before they begin. He does not need to punish. He molds structures that punish for him. And above all, he does not need to be remembered, because while others fight for fame, status, and control, he has already understood that true power does not need a face. It simply exists. The king commands in the storm. The phantom creates the weather. The king writes the law. The phantom defines what will be considered crime. The king is feared. The phantom is eternal. Can you feel the difference? Perhaps you're still at the first level, perhaps the second. But if you've come this far listening, thinking, digesting, it's because something in you recognizes this path, this spiral that rises while also descending, this silent call to step out of the crowd and build your own board. And the question now is not, which level are you at? It is, are you willing to disappear in order to truly reign? And now that you've come this far, perhaps a different silence exists within you, a silence denser, more honest, because this was not only a journey about power, it was a mirror, and not everyone has the courage to face it to the end, from those who obey without knowing, to those who manipulate without stopping, passing through those who lead alone until they break. All at some point believed they were in control, but true control makes no noise. It does not need to be recognized or followed or revered. It simply shapes and disappears. Perhaps at this very moment you are caught between two levels. Perhaps you feel ready for more, but still cling to what makes you seem necessary, and that's okay. Most people live and die without ever knowing these levels exist. But you know, now you know, and that is both the curse and the gift. Because once you see, you cannot go back. You cannot pretend the system is fair. You cannot call freedom what was taught. You cannot settle when you feel the pulse of something greater, quieter, more yours. What comes next? There is no map. There is no manual. There is only the choice. Do you want to be remembered, or do you want to make history happen even if no one knows your name? Do you want the stage, or do you want to control the lights? Do you want power, or do you want to become the game itself? Perhaps this choice won't happen today, but if this video touched something in you, if it provoked, disturbed, hurt, or awakened, then yes, you have already begun to climb. I can still remember with absolute clarity a night when I sat on the edge of my bed. On the outside, everything looked perfect. I had stability, recognition, even the so-called dream life. But inside there was only a cold, merciless emptiness, a silence that no applause or paycheck could ever fill. I had the job, I had the praise, I had the stability. But I didn't have peace, I didn't have direction, and little by little I realized I didn't even have myself. My life felt like a carefully staged play, the lights, the stage, the audience all in place. But I was just the lead actor in a script I had never written. Every line I spoke, every step I took seemed rehearsed for someone else's expectations. It was on that night that I stumbled upon Machiavelli, not through the pages of a book, but hidden in the subtext of my own frustration. And there, in the suffocating stillness of my room, with the cold blue glow of my phone screen casting shadows across my face, something clicked. Power is not about conquering others. It is about no longer being conquered by yourself. From that night on, I began to write with one haunting question echoing in my mind. How many people are still trapped at the first level, mistaking survival for victory? If this video shook you, if it pierced you, turned you inside out, made you furious, or even made you laugh in nervous disbelief, then it means something within you is still alive. Something refuses to stay asleep. Something remembers. And maybe that's all that truly matters. Because as long as a part of you is still alive, even in pain, there is still a chance to reclaim your script, a chance to rewrite your own story. And that is everything. Thank you for staying with me until the very end, in this hidden, dim corner of the internet where almost no one dares to linger. This video was never meant for everyone, and maybe that's exactly why you're here. Now, if you felt this content was too much, if you thought I went too far, or if you simply want to prove to yourself that you're braver than you appear, then leave a comment with the phrase, "I choose power and silence." Let's see who has the courage to declare that in the open, without hiding. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. Or don't. Maybe the system prefers that you keep playing the role of the invisible one. But if you've made it all the way here, deep down you already know. You no longer want to be invisible, you want to be seen, you want to be awake. And as for the videos appearing on your screen right now, be careful with your choice. One of them was designed to soothe you, to let you breathe a little easier. The other was created to tear you apart, to pull away the mask you've been afraid to remove. The choice is yours. But whichever one you click, know this. Every step you take from here has the power to rewrite your story. Good luck. I'll be waiting for you in the next shadow.